Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, thanks. What a nice welcome. And I'm honored to be with you tonight. First of all, I want to thank you. You have a great association. I want to thank Larry for his work and thank Jack for his service as president this year. Thank you so much for what you're doing for the Townships. And I also want to say thank you to for the Legislator of the Year. You picked an outstanding person. And I've known Mark for a long time. I'm not going to say how long. But Mark and I go back before either one of us arrived in Lansing. We did a lot of projects and a number of things together. And he's been a stand-up person for a long time in our state. I'm proud to have him in Lansing and the representation he brings from his district there. But in terms of Mark and his background and experience, I can tell you, this is a person that truly has stood up for townships and the quality of life and so many great things for the state of Michigan. So I want to say thank you for giving Mark an award for being Legislator of the Year. Now he just has to vote the right thing on a whole bunch of things, right? First of all, I want to wish us all happy birthday. As I look around the room, I don't see anybody looking 175 years old, though. Oh, there, I got a couple hands going up. Well, that may be that dog year thing we live. But otherwise, it is great to celebrate something, to say 175 years of being a state and of having townships. So I appreciate that, and I think that's an important part of our legacy and something that is worth noting. So I wanted to start with that. But then I want to jump right into things. When I ran for office, and many of us ran for office a couple years ago, it wasn't good enough to fix Michigan. Michigan, in many respects, had become tired and broken. We had become too negative, because we'd gone through an entire decade of going downhill. Actually, we'd been going downhill before that, but it really accelerated over that period. And it's nothing we should be ashamed of. It was just the natural course of events to say, it's time to reinvent ourselves again. We've had 3 eras in Michigan's history. We're starting the third right now. We had the natural resources era, the 1800s, what I call Michigan 1.0. The 1900s were the industrial era, which I call Michigan 2.0. And what a fabulous success. I always like to remind people, somebody asked me today, are you trying something all new and different that we're just not going to understand? And I said, absolutely not. I said, we're just trying to reignite what we had done before, which was our spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship. Because if you go back to the industrial era, we weren't just the best in the country. We led the world in innovation and entrepreneurship. The thing is, we were so successful, we did get complacent and content. We didn't reinvent ourselves when we should have. And that's one of the lessons we've learned. And so it's time. And that's why I was so excited to have the opportunity to join public service, to join you. Many of you have been far longer than I have. I'm new at this game. But a lot of it is an opportunity for us to work together, to say fixing was not good enough. It is time for a fundamental change. And what is that? It starts with a focus on 2 things. It starts with a focus on more and better jobs. And secondly, is about our children, about creating a great environment, a great place for our kids, a future for them. And that's what we're on the path to do. 2011, we accomplished a lot. It wasn't about talk, it was about action. And we showed action. We were a role model for the rest of the United States in terms of showing what a group of dedicated citizens, a state can do by working together. Not wasting time on blame, not wasting time on who's taking credit, but simply standing up and solving problems. And we're going to continue that trend. 2011 was the year to set that foundation. 2012 is to follow through with great implementation. to finish the things we said we were going to start. And one of the reasons that I was excited to be here tonight is for me, 2012 is a particular year to focus on good government. Now, good government needs to happen every year, but I think we have a special opportunity in 2012. Again, if I go back to the themes of more and better jobs, we did a lot to create that environment in terms of having unemployment drop from over 11% down to 9.3%, adding over 80,000 jobs, redoing the tax structure, the budget structure, the regulatory structure. I could keep going, but I'm going to stop because I want you to have a nice dinner and not keep on thinking of all the things I rattled off. But if you come to it, the next level is, after you set the policy framework, how do you implement things? How do you really work together? And that's where I view it as an attitude of partnership. And that doesn't come across often enough. Good government is not about any single government having all the answers. Good government is about recognizing we're all team members, and we have a role to play, and we need to support one another in a constructive way. And it's just not about the public sector supporting one another. The solution to most of our problems is not the government. It's about how we reach out and partner with the private sector, the not-for-profit sector, and the public sector. It's about collaboration and cooperation. And so one of the things you've seen that I may have already driven you nuts is that's a theme you're going to hear a lot, is how do we do best practice together? And what do I mean by good government? Well, government at the state level to me is about customer service. Whether you recognize it or not, every one of you as a citizen is a customer of mine. And I need to show you good customer service because that's what you deserve. If you think about it, we ask for some of your precious resources and taxes and revenue to do what we're doing. And so in many respects, we're a shopping choice. Some cases you didn't get a lot of choice, did you want to shop at our store or not? But in the big picture, you are a shopping choice. We are a shopping choice. And we need to deliver good service. And the best government, in my view, is when our citizens, our customers look at that, they can say, boy, I'm happy I shopped with them because I got good value for what I was shopping for. I got good service. I was treated the right way. And that's something that at the state level we need to do a better job on. And one thing I'll share with you is the issue is not with our employees. We've got good, hardworking employees at the state. I know you do in all your entities. Too often they get the blame, and sometimes they feel like they're the victim. Well, I agree with the comment that too often they are the victim. It's the system we establish, the bureaucracy we put in place. Because quite often at the state level, we may have created a bureaucracy where when they came in, almost everyone starts a new job all fired up to say they're going to give you great service, they're going to innovate, they're going to do wonderful things. But we created an environment where over a period of time, they sort of gave up. No one listened to enough of their good ideas. No one followed through to put them in place. And what we're going to do this next year is we're going to start listening a whole lot better. And we're going to do more than just listen. We're going to act. I do employee lunches all the time on a regular basis. And every meeting I have, it's interesting. I said, can anyone in this room tell me about a stupid report you're working on? That you actually do something that you know doesn't make any difference, that is a waste of time? And I probably get about 80 to 90%. Sometimes every single person will put up their hand. And I say, isn't that dumb? And they go, yeah, it sure is. But then I say, will you tell me what they are? And they hesitate. Because in some ways, they've been through the system so long, they're afraid to talk about it. Because they think they might get in trouble or something other negative may happen. And the point is we have to create that environment where they're comfortable and saying it's dumb and making those things go away. And I know we do the same thing with you probably. And that's part of the dialogue we need to continue about how we work with townships. I bet if I took a poll, anybody here think of anything dumb the state does? But isn't the most important thing to start with that question? To say, let's have an honest dialogue. Because I'm not here to sugarcoat things. I just want the facts. And the facts are, in 2012, we're going to start that process of saying, let's talk about all those dumb things and get them out of the way and reallocate those resources to doing something smart, to doing something that helps the customer, or potentially even telling them we can offer that service for a lower price. And that's the focus. So it won't happen overnight. But one thing tonight is I just want to reach out to you and say, shouldn't we partner on this? This is exciting. This is about reinventing. And one of the things I'm really happy about, I was going to mention one program we started this last year that, again, I made it up. If you really want to know where it came from, and the budget people in my group said, well, what were you doing? I said, well, I thought it was worth a try. It's about innovating. And that was the program we created with $5 million to encourage innovation, collaboration, and service sharing between jurisdictions. We just did a bunch of awards last week. And I'm proud to say we had 6 townships that applied and got awards. And those dollars are going to great use. We had $5 million in this pot. We had over $20 million of applications about how to innovate and be entrepreneurial in government. That's something our citizens would like to hear and like to see how we're doing that. So one of the things I'm hoping to do is actually put more dollar resources in that pot for next year. So that's something for you to think about. So I really hope we can create this environment to say we can work together. And as I said before, it's not just about changing a law or a regulation or a report. The most difficult part of this transition, of these changes that we need to do, and we will do, is a cultural one about how we operate and how we treat one another and how we work together and how we treat our customers. Because as I said, as I was talking about Michigan being sort of broken, we have become too negative. Where the first reaction too often when you hear about some problem is to say, well, they did it, or they're to blame. My answer is, I don't care. Spending time blaming people doesn't solve a problem. The other part that goes with that is, I don't care who gets credit. Does that matter? If we're working together and we give our customer great service, the important thing isn't who gets to raise their hand to say, I did it versus them. The best answer is to say, didn't we all win together? And can't we all get credit? And that's that whole philosophy that if you haven't gotten tired already, you will. Relentless positive action. No blame, no credit. What's the problem? Let's solve the problem. Let's move on, and let's be relentless. That is the one thing that is going to help distinguish us from the rest of the country. It worked last year. It works this year. And if we can show that every one of us can join in and bring our colleagues and friends and our neighbors to all bring that together, we will continue to stand out from the rest of the country as the place to be, as the place that's doing Michigan 3.0, the place that is showing the rest of the country and the world that we can innovate and be entrepreneurial and make a real difference. I am absolutely fired up to do this. But it's not about me. It's about we. So as we go through these issues, and I want to get to Q&A because I love questions and answers going back and forth. Think about that as we go through these questions and answers, about reframing it. Instead of who did what to whom, or how this came about and who got credit and who didn't. Let's just keep a framing of We know we have a lot more problems to solve, but we're just going to get up every day and say, hey, here's the most important one, let's knock this off. After that's this one, after this, that one, and I can tell you, it adds up. We are on the cusp of true reinvention, of having it so Michiganders can be proud, and it starts with all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks. We'll do some questions? Yeah, sure.
Well, Governor, I think everybody hear me okay? I get to use the side mic. Governor, we announced yesterday that you were gracious enough to solicit questions, in which he has not seen. These are all totally without any knowledge. Hermetically sealed until this very moment. Now, we received a few questions. I think I counted 45, and we have 10 minutes to go through all 45. Can you do that?
Sure, we go fast.
Sure. Yes,
Dog
no,
ears.
yes, no, baby. Well, what we will do is this. Unfortunately, we anticipate the governor won't be able to do all 45. So we've winnowed it down to 6 of the broadest questions that have the broadest applicability. We thought perhaps had the broadest interest, but for those of you whose question was not asked, we'll forward those to the governor's office. He may never answer it, but at least he'll know the question was in the back of your mind. So you can at least know what people would have liked to have asked you. So I will start with the first one. You have framed the question, or the issue of restoring Michigan to prosperity as a partnership. Townships govern 96% of Michigan's land area. 56,000 square miles are governed by townships. Townships govern 58% of the land value in Michigan and 52% of the population. So clearly, here's a resource at your disposal. How can Michigan's townships partner with you to restore Michigan to prosperity?
Well, those are great facts, and they're actually in your brochure. I
You
saw
read
most
that.
of them.
You read it.
I think you guys forgot that part that I'm a nerd. I read it all. So I'm looking forward to those extra questions. There are a couple things, though, and I want to start with the most basic. The first thing you can always do is to keep doing what you're doing, because that's critically important. Because I know you're challenged. I mean, I know it's been a difficult environment, and you're doing a good job in a difficult environment. So I need you to keep doing what you're doing. But I ask a couple things. One is to think about that attitude of customer service and relentless positive action, and how you can make that happen every day. Because I can guarantee you'll see a difference in how things operate. The second one is that air of openness. As I ask people about the stupid things that the state does, I would appreciate it if you'd help share those in a constructive way. I'm serious. What I would ask is you figure out some forum where you can bring them together, Larry, in the association, and consolidate them and help prioritize them. Because the key thing there is if we can see what those are. And again, it's just not, the tradition of government in some ways is how do you dump on the other level of government? And believe me, I understand your position. It's the flow down theory too often. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of it, though, is getting that list, putting that together, and then having an open dialogue to say, okay, here's what we can do and we can't do right now, but we can just start knocking some of these off and show progress. So I'd appreciate it if you would figure out a way to consolidate, bring your thoughts together, and help us identify the dumbest of the dumb, and start working with us.
I have a feeling they'll be open to that. Thank you. Okay. All right, we're going to drill down a little bit. If the personal property tax is repealed, how will townships and other local governments be protected from economic hardship?
Well, that's a great question. I had that a few times already, but I really expected that one tonight. I would have been disappointed if you hadn't asked. A couple things. First of all, when we talk about personal property tax, at least what I'm recommending is our reforms focused on 2 elements of it, because that's a big area in its own right. And the first element is the industrial equipment piece, because that's the biggest job multiplier element of it. Again, the commercial piece is important, the utility piece, but I don't believe we can solve it all at once. And I want to prioritize to say that's the most critical for job creation in terms of competitiveness and some other issues. The second piece of it that if we had the resources I'd like to look at is what I'd call the nuisance level. That, again, doesn't bring in very many dollars, people filing very small dollar amounts, but it's taking a lot of your time and their time and our time to do. I would like to clean that out and see if we could get a much higher threshold. So in that light, that's a big piece. But to go to the specifics of your question, one reason you haven't seen us attack it with the same speed we did everything else is because I view it as a partnership question. So my goal is not to have it, so I'm telling you how we're going to distribute all the dollars for the replacement funds that come into place. My preference is to have all the local communities figure out how to come together with the cities, the villages, the other players, and say, okay, here's the situation, here's how we would ask for an equitable distribution. The best way to help solve this problem is to partner with all your other colleagues to come up with an answer, because my view is what I'd like to do is help identify a revenue stream and be able to tell you, hey, here's the revenue stream, here's kind of the dollar magnitude in total, here's a focus on industrial equipment or nuisance value, and now you help tell me how we should divvy that up, instead of us simply dictating something. So again, I'm willing to wait. What I would hope is you'd act fairly promptly about getting people together to come up with an answer, because again, my goal is not to create hardship for you. The reason for bringing up reform on the personal property tax is because I don't think you view it as a good thing and holding you back in a lot of ways in terms of the parts I'm talking about. So instead of turning it to say it's us against one another, we should all be in this together to say if we can clean this up, it's going to help us all grow and do well, or make things better for our citizens. Let's work in partnership and get it done.
Okay. The next one, your State of the State address promoted the revitalization of cities. There are many townships that are actually larger than cities. So, is the differentiation between size of government, or is there some reason cities are given special treatment as opposed to other forms of government? And if the focus is on the revitalization of cities, what is the role of the townships in that objective?
Yeah, well, actually, I've got a minute. I got the mic, so I can tell an interesting story to give you a little background. That I was doing a calculation, again, another nerd-type calculation, I would probably say, is I actually figured out I've spent more than half my life living in townships. So I understand townships. Actually, I live in a wonderful one, Superior Township today. But I grew up in a township that had about 25,000 people in it. And the funny story is my father was actually a township trustee for many years after he retired. And one funny story, I don't know if you saw the auto show, they asked me what my first real vehicle was. And it was a 1970 Plymouth wagon. And it was fire engine red because my dad bought it at auction from the township fire chief. So I can say I had a close relationship with the township more than many people could. That if you got up close on this vehicle, you could still make out the letters on the side.
That was a chick magnet, wasn't it?
It was a real chick magnet. The only cool feature, there was one cool feature, is they left the spotlight on. So I had fun a little bit with that one. So, and I got 13 miles to the gallon. But no, I appreciate the township question very much so. What I would tell you, though, is we have a serious situation with cities in distress. And my view is I want to make sure we're working on all geographies in all areas of our state. But again, we have to prioritize and work on things in a fairly systematic way, and I think you know that about me. I like to be thoughtful, here's a strategy, here's a systematic approach, and then be very diligent about following through. Because if you look at where we're at with our cities, and that's one reason I'm doing a public safety message, we have 4 of the top 10 most violent cities in the United States. We have educational systems in many of these cities that are dramatically challenged. We have high unemployment and underemployment. And again, we have some of these same kind of issues in some of our rural areas in particular, so I don't underestimate that at all. But what I would say to you is in a relative prioritization of crisis, the cities needed to have priority for 2012. Now, the good part is I'm in an office for a little while longer. And what I would hope is let's start the focus on the cities, but let's not stop there. And that's not to say we're not going to do good things over this next year. One thing I was proud of is for Keith Cray, the Department of Agriculture, we added the portfolio for rural development as part of that. And then we have the whole question of suburban development. So I appreciate that, but in relative priority, hopefully you can appreciate all the issues and challenges that I expect to spend a significant amount of time on city-related issues this year because we need to support our cities. They are in crisis in a number of aspects.
And how will that impact on townships? Is it just simply a matter of the state's priority, or does it become a zero-sum game between townships and cities?
I don't think it is at all because we all are in this together. And that's one question I'd ask, and one question well, not a question, a statement I make flat out. For Michigan to truly be a great state again, we need Detroit to be on the path to being a great city again. And that's true regardless of where we live. So again, I'm viewing it as, from a statewide perspective, I represent every citizen in the state, and I take that very seriously. What I will tell you is it's not about win-lose. It's about how to raise everyone up and to understand if we're doing something in one place, we need to be equitable and thoughtful about how we handle the other places around the state. And every time I make a decision, I think that way.
Great. Thank you. Okay, the next question is, what change or reform related to local government yet to be accomplished is your highest priority?
Well, a lot of it is implementing some of the things we did. And that's where I ask people to follow through because a lot of this is innovation. And that's where I like the concept of accountability and transparency, getting people to do dashboards. And again, the funny part is everybody thought I was nuts when I first started talking about doing dashboards. They go, you gotta be kidding me. You're in political office and you actually want to be measured? But the way I view it is it's a way to celebrate success and to help identify where the real problems and issues are. So you're going to hear this mantra over and over again about accountability and transparency, about efficiency and effectiveness, about looking to say how we can be more cost efficient, at the same time providing higher value service, about tying things in to say it's not just about writing someone a check, it's seeing that that check goes to something worthwhile. And the fun one I like to ask people, I've had fun with this. Last week after the State of the State, I did a couple things, and there are certain groups that just like to come ask for money. So I was in an audience like this, and I said, okay, think about any other part of the world. People come into the government all the time and say, I need money, or I want money. And if I came to you in your personal life, or to the degree you have a business or other activities, and walked up to you and said, give me 20 bucks, how many of you would stand up and just pull out a 20? What would normally go through your head? What are you going to do with that? That's not a bad question to ask. That's a common sense question to ask. And to say, I'd be happy to give you 20 bucks if you can show me you're doing something good with it. That's why we're taking that same approach. It's time for common sense to come to government more.
We'd like that. Okay, we have time for a couple more. Will new road funding, if approved by the legislature, be allocated to all communities, or will some areas get more money than others?
Well, again, that's a question of, does it make any sense that everybody get an even amount? It depends on how you define even. So one of the things I'll tell you is there are two parts to that. One is we do need incremental funding. We do need to invest about $1.4 billion a year more in our roads. And I think hopefully there's a lot of strong support for that because the question is, pay me now, pay me later. If we don't make that investment on a continuing basis, it's going to cost our kids a whole lot more than that. And I don't want to leave that for them. I view it as about smart investing and showing those dollars are making a difference. The second question is the allocation of those dollars. And currently it's done by Public Act 51 and this is the part I like to emphasize, I didn't realize this until I became governor, it's Public Act 51 of 1951. And unless you're going to bring me a rotary dial phone to use on my desk, I think it's probably a good idea to update every 60 years or so. And I'm an accountant, you know that. So I actually asked him to give me a diagram of PA 51. Have you ever seen a diagram of PA 51? Well, I don't know if they're serving alcohol tonight or not, but you'd be drinking. So it's a flawed model. And so the point is, when it was done, it was probably a real smart model. So the question is, we do need to update that, and I want a good hearing on how do we do that. So in many ways, if you look at our message, we didn't over-specify things, because that's where I view partnership with, and I see some legislators here, that's where we have a great partnership. Because we should put that out in front of the public and have a good dialogue and come up with a good model. Some of the things we do need to look at is allocating to the roads traveled the most. We need to be very thoughtful about our commercial corridors, about where the jobs really are. But we also need to be thoughtful, particularly of our agricultural and tourism needs, and the fact that a road is a lifeline for all communities. So it's really a combination of 5 factors or so like that to say, how do you take all these factors and come up with a rational balance? And the other thing we need to show our citizens is the old ways of doing things in terms of best practice about how to do the best road bidding, the best jobs, the most efficient allocation of those resources. We need to do that as part of this process. But I think we got a great opportunity. The last time we did something on roads was back in the late 90s. Isn't it about time we get our act together and do something? I hope you're fully going to support that.
Now, your staff gave me a note that said, please help us get the governor home tonight to his family. And we're all family people, so we're going to respect your time, and I've got one more
If you heard the
question.
state of the state, you understand there are higher authorities at home.
And is the seat up or down tonight?
That's a case where you don't need the state to give you the regulation.
I'm married too, I know how that works. So, my last question, now I had to rewrite this one because this question was written on about 4 pages of things, so I'm kind of going to distill it down to its essence. The question was that the administration and the legislature this past year adopted laws dealing with emergency financial management and setting regulations on units of government fringe benefits. The question is, are there limits to the appropriate role of state government on local problems or issues?
I appreciate that. No, a lot of it is again, good government's done by people working with people. So it's not about us being overly prescriptive. And one of the things that, with respect to those requirements, because that tied into accountability, transparency, the service consolidation, one of the standards I hold myself to when we look at these things is, again, it's partnership. So when we talk about those things, these are things we're asking of ourselves as much as you. And we're trying to do it in the broader sense. But ultimately, when you get down to it, one of the beauties of our system is, for a lot of issues, it's best done at the local level. The state clearly doesn't have all the answers, believe me.
I'd be glad to hear that.
I mean, how long have I been in political office, and how many years did I sit there if somebody showed up from Lansing and said, hi, I'm from Lansing, I'm here to help? That made me pretty nervous. Well, I can tell you, I'm governor, and I still get nervous when I hear that phrase. And I should. Because it's about good government. And again, that goes back to the point. Government is not here to do everything for everyone. We each have our roles and responsibilities. And the question is, instead of looking at us as islands, how are we partners again? Because the best success we're going to have is saying we're not a whole series of islands or silos or whatever analogy you want, because our customers don't want that. They don't care. The last thing they ever want to hear is have someone at the state say, go talk to your township, or somebody at the township say, go talk to the state. They just want an answer. And so that's why I encourage this approach of partnership, communication, collaboration, and we're going to be a team. We're one big team. And let's win together. So thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Governor, thanks for joining us tonight. Thank you.